Let me go back to my advice to Iran at this particular time. I spoke from the pulpit of the ATLAH World Missionary Church on this past Sabbath, and I advised Iran, and the Iranian Muslim people are the sons of Hagar. In the book of Genesis chapter 16, verse 1 through 16, Abraham has a sexual encounter with an Egyptian handmaid in his house that Sarah and he lived in the tent, and Hagar, who was an Egyptian young girl, gave birth to a son named Ishmael. And Ishmael became the father of the Muslims. But because Hagar was an Egyptian, and Egyptians are Hamites of the three sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Ham settled Egypt many years after the flood, and Hagar came out of Egypt as an Egyptian and into Abraham's tent. And so the Muslims are Hamites, as is the Africans and many of the Asians as well. But the Muslims have a specific religion, the Islamic religion, according to their prophet Muhammad, who is not a prophet of God. And I'll say that clearly. But my advice to the sons of Hagar is don't retaliate against Tribulation Trump. However, that's just my advice. It's not a word from the Lord. Because really, in many ways, what I've just said about Donald John Trump being the tribulation is that the Middle East is the most volatile place on planet Earth to start a war. Now, China could be very volatile. We could go back to Vietnam, but it would be nothing like the Middle East. Nothing like the Middle East. There is no place where the angst and animus between the sons of Shem and the sons of Ham and the sons of Japheth is more pronounced in terms of its level of intensity, anger, and hatred, and its long-running years of hatred, as is the Middle East. It is a powder keg of hatred. It is a powder keg of war and racial division. It is the birthplace. It is the cradle of civilization there in Mesopotamia. It is the cradle. It's the place of the Garden of Eden. There along in the area of Iraq, it's the place of the rise where Babylon will rise again, Babylon the Great. Baghdad was once Babylon, and Iran is Persia with Darius and Cyrus and all of the Persian Nebuchadnezzar and his raid on Israel, and Israel being the birthplace of the Jews, of the home of the Jews, the Palestinians, who then tried to take the land. It is a powder keg of religious upheaval. And as Joe Biden said just the other day, Tribulation Trump has thrown a stick of dynamite into a tinderbox by assassinating Qasem Soleimani. So it's on. It is on. And the prophecy now of wars and rumors of wars is most imminent. What will Iran do? They're not going to heed my advice. And the reason why I explain to the Iranians to not retaliate, because if they do so, Tribulation Trump only lit this grenade and threw this grenade into this very volatile region is because that's the only hope he has, not just for the potential of being reelected in 2020, but the fact that the Senate, led by Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, will impeach Trump. They will remove him. No, they will remove him. The Senate, a number of people, the pundits are running around talking about there's no way 67 senators needing at least 20 Republicans going to vote with the Democrats to remove Trump. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. And this, of course, yes, they will is conditional. Yes, they will not is also conditional, let me hasten to say. But yes, they will if witnesses like Mick Mulvaney, John Bolton, Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, Office of Management and Budget, Deputy Advisor Duffy, and others, Don McGahn, are called into the Senate, into the well of the Senate, to testify as witnesses of the transaction between President Zelensky of the Ukraine and Tribulation Trump and the withholding of the $391 million of aid to that nation, if the truth is told about that and about a bunch of other things that Robert Mueller wrote about in Trump's obstruction of justice, they will impeach him. The reason why the senators are supporting Trump is not because they love him or believe in him or want to help him or think he's noble. They're trying to protect their own hides. But when the public becomes aware of how nasty, how degenerate, how sick, how psychologically degenerate, what a pathological misfit, what a scraping of the scum barrel is Trump, and the world sees what goes on in the Oval Office behind once the cameras are shut down and people have no access to the degeneracy of Trump, even the lowest of the Republican senators would not want to be identified with him. And they would not be able to face their constituents by saying they have defended someone who as is the degenerate as Tribulation Trump, and they will impeach him, and he knows it. This is a bit of a news blog we do looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I am he. I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.